What have you done on Sunday? What did you do? Do you go places? Do you do things? Do you stay at home? Do you lounge? Do you go to church? Do you go to mosque? What do you do, people? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, I'm just trying different times on these ones. So I want to jump on and talk to you of obviously how to manifest, but we're manifesting from a who, not a what. We're not manifesting things. We're manifesting from a person. We're manifesting from you know how like the book Doctor Who, everything's about Whoville, right? Everything's about this community of different versions of Who's, right? And I think it's a good metaphor. I think it's actually an awesome metaphor. If you ever watched it, if you watched the one with Jim Carrey, if you grew up with the books, it's about the series of different types of Who's experiencing what's. And that's ultimately what manifestation is. It's a who experiencing a what. So yes, Dr. Seuss is awesome. And I think he knew something of this because when you think about manifestation, right, is never, and it will never be, and it will never operate like this, that you ultimately are operating from a what or a want. Now, I am, as a psychologist, I'm also well aware that we are desiring machines. Okay, what that means is we will never stop desiring. Neville does actually talk about this in some of his work. He doesn't talk about it a lot, but he basically makes the argument that we are going to never stop wanting. So, if you take it to philosophy, you might want to focus on the work of Deleuze, Deleuze, who says we are desiring machines, right? Now, for him, his argument is that our desires, most of them are not ours. Most of our desires are someone else's, meaning societies, our religious groups, our parents, right? And most of our desires are given to us or normalized for us by others, usually through language, right? That's first and foremost. Desire is normalized through language, meaning, hey, I want this, right? So I have to use language to let you know what I want. Why is this important when we're trying to figure out what Neville means when he talks about a state? Give me a second, okay? Because I like going to origins, deep origins, rather than just like, hey, go manifest a house in 3 minutes. Nope, not going to happen. Most of that is bullshit anyways, and I'm calling on it right now, right? Can you ever get to that point? Of course, anything is possible. But the reality is that most of us will have problems with that because we live in a world that is predicated on or built upon or normalizing this idea that everything takes time, right? But time in and of itself is a language idea, right? It is not a real idea. And we've talked about this in the last 2 sessions, right? Time is not a real idea. It's a language idea, right? And so meaning we're always constantly explaining, okay, what it means to experience time. But today is not about time. Today is about what a state is. But to understand a state, we have to go back, okay? And what that means is what we're understanding right now is that we are desiring machines. We are the who's who live in Whoville, right? But notice that they're different versions of who's. This is kind of a nod to the multiverse. There's a multiverse version of you for pretty much every single circumstance. Now, if you ever follow the work of quantum jumping, the idea is in some of the work is that there's a doppelganger version of you, right? There's a second version of you that exists. There's a twin or there's a person that is just like you, has all the different things except it has what you want, right? And then you begin conversing with this doppelganger, this twin version of yourself that ultimately has what you want. And you begin having conversations with them. You either like mold with them, whatever it is, you end up becoming them, this multiverse version. So when we're coming back to understanding what a state is through understanding desire, you have to understand that we are desiring machines. But desiring machines means that the machine is usually, not all the time, and this is why we're talking about this first to understand a state, is that the machine of desiring, meaning the processes, the normalization of, oh, you shouldn't desire that, but you should desire that, right, is ultimately what, hey, Shamli, very good to have you, by the way, happy Sunday. And And so what we're talking about, by the way, is we're talking about what a state is, but now we're understanding it from a different perspective. We're talking about a state, right, from understanding desire, okay? Because we are desiring machines, as I was just saying, Shamli, right? And so desiring machines just means that you are given desire. Hello, hello, hello. You're very Burnett. How are you doing today? I just mumbled your name because I can't see it. Let me see. Hang on. Let me turn my light on. Don't worry. I can hear. I'm still here. Okay. What's up? What's up? What's up, Suzanne? Your favorite brunette. Okay. How's it going, everybody? Tell me what you're doing on Sunday, right? And if you don't know what we're talking about manifestation, but we're talking about it from a scientific and psychological perspective. Okay. So meaning we're not going to talk about the woo and lighting candles and tarot cards and all this kind of stuff. I don't do that. Nothing wrong with that for those people, but I don't do that. So we're talking about it from science perspective, right? And so when we're trying to understand desire, you have to understand that your desires, most of them, okay? Oh, that's awesome. I hope you're enjoying the beach. That sounds so fun. Is that most of the time when you grow up, as you're growing up, your desires, right? Charmander, yes, the woo. Yeah, I'm not into the woo. I'm into the who, right? The woo is not, woo as in lighting candles and burning sage and going to palm readers and all that kind of good stuff. I am not into that. King Money, what's up, what's up, what's up? And so, again, nothing wrong with it, just I'm not into it. And I'm more of a scientist and psychologist, so I'm trying to understand this and explain it to you, at least through the work of Neville Goddard. And don't worry, if you've never heard of this person, I will make everything clear for you, okay? So I hope you guys are all doing awesome on Sunday. And while we're talking, share us what you're doing. Somebody's at a beach, right? Let me know what you're doing. Red Hood. And if you're looking for, can you make sure that you guys like it as well? Because that helps the algorithm as well. And if you're looking for coaching, get in touch. This is all science-backed, neuroscience-backed. That's my training. I'm trained in neuroscience, psychology, behavioral science, right? So, back to this. We are desiring machines. So I'm going to come at this because Neville used the word state, but we're going to try to understand it from a different perspective. Okay, so first off, we're going to talk about the psychology of desire. Okay? And so that means when you're a child, you end up getting a schema. We talked about this a little bit before in my other videos, right? But a schema is what you're meant to desire, what's right to desire, what's wrong to desire. And so Neville says, listen, get the right and wrong language out immediately. Stop looking at what is right and what is wrong. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no evil, there is no good. That's all subjective, which means it's down to you and how you interpret. Right? And the reason why this is not because there isn't some sort of wrong or right. It's just that you determine what that is. So he says, listen, every single person on this earth, whatever they're desiring, whatever they want to manifest, whatever they want to come into their lives, they need to use the golden rule. Would you want that desire given to somebody else if they wanted it, and you would want it as well? Okay? Meaning, if there is something that you want and it's going to hurt somebody else, would you want that to happen to you? That is your right or wrong. That is your rubric. That is your rule book. Okay? And so Neville's view of ethics is very postmodern, meaning there isn't a right or wrong. There isn't a God saying this is right or wrong. You are the God saying it's right or wrong. That's what Neville is saying. That's how he differentiates. Thank you for the thumbs up like as well. If others can do that, that'd be great. And Shamli, yes, by the way, that does come from experiences, right? So in psychology, in the work of Jean Piaget, right? No, it's not a mustard sauce. That's actually an actual psychologist. He talks about how we are given these mental maps, right? And they're called schemas. And these mental maps are pretty much ingrained in us at the ages of 5 to 8. Okay? Yes, I love Alan Watts. Big fan of Alan Watts, actually. Love most of his stuff. I say most because I haven't read all of it. But everything I've read, I've loved. Love his philosophy. By the way, Buddhism actually ties in with all of this. Right? So even Alan Watts talks about this idea of suffering. Like, suffering isn't because you desire. It's suffering tied in with the work of Neville Goddard. Is the reason why you suffer is because you're not letting go of you already having it. So in that sense, desire is an illusion because you're still desiring, right? And when you stop desiring, which means you already have your desire, then the actual pain of having or not having what you don't want, not having what you want is actually released, right? So Neville Goddard is actually quite important for Buddhism, or even Alan Watts, because he's kind of like the next step on, right? Not that there's one versus the other. I think that they're very complementary. They work together well. Both of their works are actually making sense of the universe and our place in it, which is both of them claim the same thing, which is that we are gods, right? And we're just always forgetting it. Neville says that it's a form of amnesia. Alan Watts says something similar, right? That we're basically forgetting that we are God, that like God plays at forgetting, right? And so either of these are actually correct, right? There isn't one philosophy to me that's greater than another. I just resonate personally with the work of Neville Goddard because he takes a psychological view of the Bible. For so many years, I actually was like against the Bible, and I used to be a pastor for 15 years, all this kind of stuff. I studied Greek and Hebrew and Ugarit and Phoenician and all these ancient biblical languages to understand the deep roots. That's actually what took me away from Christianity, was actually realizing, oh shit, like this is not what's being said, right? And this is the actual deep heart of what is, right? And so, yeah, so, yeah, sure. I will give him a shout out towards the end if you stay on there, Dr. Life. Yeah, so let's talk about desiring machines, because most of your desires aren't your own. This is also what Neville talks about, having a pure desire, or what the Bible calls the unblemished lamb. Or he says, listen, you have to have a clear desire. The reason why he says clear is because most of our desires, and I've talked about this before, are given to us. Right? That means it's not yours. That's like when somebody says, I grew up in a Hindu culture, and in the Hindu culture, you're supposed to go to America, become a doctor, blah, 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 blah. Now, that's not for every person in Hindu culture. I just know that a handful of people, when I lived in India, were saying that this was social pressure, and it's tied up to their parental expectations, and so on and so forth, right? And so that is not a clear desire, because your desire is then forced upon you. Paul, the Apostle Paul in the Bible says, don't conform. That means you are no longer a desiring machine. That means you are now forming all of your desires yourself, not with someone else, not because you're female and you're 25 and you should be married. That's bullshit. You should not fall into that trap just because you have a certain gender, or because you identify with that gender, or because there's certain rules around anything. Ultimately, Neville's trying to free us from any of that. He's saying there's no such thing as a rule, right? And so last time I talked about his really confusing, somewhat controversial idea of everyone is you pushed out, right? Another way to say that is to understand it backwards, okay? Is to basically say you are none of those labels. Everyone is you pushed out is really letting go of all of those labels. You're removing race, you're removing religion, you're removing that you're a car owner, you're removing all of those. So when Neville says that everyone is you pushed out, it's basically saying we're all God, right? Yes, the other element to what he's saying is everybody's a mirror to your belief system. Right? Now, let me be clear here, because I see a lot of people full on having mental health breakdowns because they think that everyone is you pushed out means every single action somebody else does towards them, every single decision that they are seeing, every single thing that they have experienced is all just a mirror on them and nobody else has any responsibility. That's bullshit, right? And Neville's not saying that. And in several different places, he argues that people actually do have free will. And that free will is the ability to choose their state. That's why I want to talk about states as well. So do I believe in free will? 100%, right? People have the ability to reject anything that they don't want to accept. Now, how do you overcome that if somebody's stubborn and you want them to change? You persist, you persevere, you keep going. It may take a year, it may take 4 months. He actually shared a story, this is a funny story, but he shared a story of a mother basically who wanted her son to change the way he dressed, right? And so she obviously had to change her perspective on him internally, here, mentally, right? It took about 3 months, I want to say, about 3 or 4 months. And he finally started dressing the way that she wanted him to. But she had to persist in that, right? And so and I do see questions coming up, so I do want to come back to these. And, when you understand that we're desiring machines, which means we're given our desires, then that means part of this process of manifesting is also giving up some of those desires and realizing that some of those desires, giving them up, will come with stress. Not because they're meant to, but they'll come with anxiety. They'll come with guilt, right? So let's say part of your journey is that you were a people pleaser, right? Because as a child, you learned to people please because that's what made your parents happy. That's what made your teachers happy, right? And as you got older, maybe you got your first job at 16, whatever, however you like you were, right? You learned, okay, I've got to do that to please my boss. So then now you're 25, now you're 22, now you're 27, now you're 34, now you're 43, whatever it is, and you're like, oh damn, I'm a people pleaser. And then so when you know that's not even good for you, you still hold on to it because it's the habit of your identity. This is very important because this is leading to what a state is, okay? That's really, really key, by the way, the habit of identity. And that's first step to understanding what a state is. Your identity, your state, is a series of identity markers or characteristics that you've accepted as true and that you habitually, which means you do it as a ritual every single day, right? And so what happens is that when you embrace the desire of something else, you're becoming somebody else. You're not who you are, right? And that's where the stress comes. I don't know if I've shared this before, but he has a great definition, Jim Carrey, the actor. And he was talking about depression. And he was saying, if you break down that word, it's deep rest, right? It's depressed, deep rest from the role that you're playing, right? And so take that. That's pretty powerful because what that's saying is you've been given a role. So Jean Piaget, the psychologist I was just saying, who says we have these mental maps or these schemas from a childhood, what he's saying is you're playing a role that's been given to you, okay? And so if you're trying to please your parents, boom, you're going to fail, right? And actually, here's the thing. You're not going to fail. You're going to get what you want because you're playing the role, right? So you are playing the role of being somebody else's desires. And you're actually marking yourself and judging others, and you're judging situations based upon who you think, right? Who you think you should be, not based on what you are, not based on what you desire, but based on who you think you need to be. Okay? Are you with me? Are you with me so far? And so you need to stop playing the social game. That's really what this is about, right? If you have social pressure, it's going to shape and mold and pressure your desires into things that you don't want. So if that means that you need to do the work, that's okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't manifest the true desire while you're working on yourself. But part of manifestation, and most people don't talk about this in manifestation circles, is you do need to work on yourself, right? And so that doesn't mean that you can't manifest. Do not hear me say that. You can obviously manifest. You can manifest all those things even in the midst of these so-called issues, right? Believing that they're not issues is your first step. But if they keep repeating, if they keep showing up, that's the inner self's way of saying, hey, there's something here that needs to be addressed. There's something here that you need to heal. There's something here that you need to seek help with, if you do, right? Maybe you don't. And so I want to encourage you to think about what those are for your own journey, okay? And again, just FYI, I do coaching. It's all science-backed. It's all backed by psychology. I have all my credentials, right? So get in touch. There's a free Discord group. Let me know if the link is dead just by emailing me at that address in my bio. But basically, okay, if we know that we're desiring machines, which means we're never going to stop desiring. Neville says that. Alan Watts says that, right? We're constantly desiring. But that doesn't mean that you can't be satisfied. And that's where another element that I think is very important before we get to states is that when we're desiring, okay, and Neville says that we should do this morning, noon, and night, he is not saying that we should be in a state of always desiring. He's actually saying we should be in a state of satisfaction because that's what you are doing when you're giving yourself your desire, okay? When you are giving yourself what you want inside, in the mind, by creating those scenes from the first person, acting out one action that you repeat over and over and over and over, and you feel it until it's real. If it takes 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, it doesn't matter. Timeline doesn't matter because you're giving it yourself now, right? What he's saying, though, is that when you give that to yourself, because most people are what they're doing, and this is what I see, is they're giving them their desire for like an hour, and then they go shit scared for the next 23 hours of that day, right? And then what ends up happening is that is that they end up kind of unraveling all of the work and effort that they did in that 1 hour. And my argument is this, by the way: if you do that 1 hour and it's good, or 10 minutes or whatever it takes to get you into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, whatever you do, that's more powerful than the 23 hours of loss, if you believe that. Actually, sorry, not loss, but learning, right? Because there is no such thing as loss. So are you with me so far? I know we're going into a little bit deeper territory, but I really think this is important, because when we get to states, which we're going to jump to now, you're going to now understand why states are about desire, but not desire, not unfulfilled desire. It's all about fulfilled desire, okay? Because, and this is key, very key, when you enter a state, whether it's a good or bad state, I'm going to define what a state is right now, but whether it's a good or bad state, you will experience it. So when Neville says that you'll experience the fullness of a state, he's using the Hebrew idea of perfect. Perfect is not the same as we say in the West. Like, oh my gosh, I don't have any flaws, blah, blah, blah. That's BS. The Hebrew idea is that you're always growing, always learning. That's literally the definition, right? The actual definition of what perfect is. It is growth. That's the Hebrew understanding of perfection, is growth. If you stop growing, that means if you're not changing states, you are not perfect in the biblical sense, right? So always be changing, always be growing, always be open to growing, always be open to pushing, always be open to learning, right? And so that's also what a state is, right? But if you're locked into any state that you don't want to be, Neville means this: you will always have your desires. This is why we started talking about desires, shaped from within that state. Okay? That means whatever you want will always be shaped by whatever you don't have. That's yet another way of saying it. Okay? Are you with me so far? So you're always going to want what you don't have. There's nothing wrong with wanting something, but are you wanting it and you're giving it like to yourself and then not giving it back to yourself, right? Yeah, so Kevin, very good question. So if it fulfills its purpose. Yeah, so perfect, though, really is actually about developmental change in the Hebrew sense, right? Like, are you changing as a person? So that's why Neville talks a lot about changing states. And a state is, by the way, an identity. But your identity is always framing your desire, right? Let me say it in a very simple, really, really bad example way. A drug dealer or drug user always wants drugs. Why? Because they're identifying as the drug user, right? If somebody's free from drugs, they're identifying as a person who doesn't want drugs anymore. Are you with me? So then, right? And so, but while you're in the state of being a drug dealer, or sorry, a drug user, you're going to experience the fullness of that state. You're going to experience like the uncontrollable desire for drugs. You're going to experience, right? You're going to experience what it means to break the law. You're going to experience, because most of the time that's what you're doing if you have illegal narcotics, right? You might experience even being arrested. You're going to experience all of the physical ramifications of, let's say you try to stop, but you're still identifying as the drug user, right? You're still going to actually experience all of the withdrawals. Why? Because you're experiencing that state. You're experiencing that belief system. And that's what a state is. That's ultimately what Neville says, is like, listen, we're always changing states, which means we're always in and out of beliefs. We're always changing our beliefs. And that means we're always forming identities. This is where neuroscience comes in. And this is insane what I'm about to share with you. Okay, and I got about 10 more minutes, only because my battery is going to go. But basically, but this is very important, so please stay on. In terms of the neuroscience of identity, as it relates to states, right, is that, and this is crazy how this works, but this is how it works. So neuroscience research shows that the way in which our identity works, if it's anything, a house owner, we're loved, we're married, whatever it is that you want to manifest in your life, okay? You have an identity. Here's the thing. That identity, and this actually explains well what Neville means, right? And is basically you're getting dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, which is like adrenaline, right? But norepinephrine is also partially for movement, physical movement, right? So is dopamine. So dopamine isn't just a reward neuromolecule. It's also literally will tell your body how to move. Okay, but it does include reward, and it also includes expectation. So if you continue a habit of an identity over and over and over and over, you'll get rewarded for dopamine. This is why drug addicts have a hard time breaking the habit, because they're getting rewarded for bad habits, right? This is why a rageaholic today, this is why social media is the way it is right now, right? This is why it's good to not be on social media most of the time, right? Because the algorithm is training you to be a rageaholic. It's giving you dopamine every time you get pissed off about politics, about somebody doing something that you don't agree with, whatever it is, right? And then that puts you on your high horse. You get dopamine, all this kind of stuff, and then it makes you expect it more. Go find more. Go find more. Here's the thing. Then you think, oh yeah, but I have a choice to actually make an action, right? And so, oh, thank you, Sadia. And so what you end up with, though, is this idea that you're getting rewarded for a certain identity and a role that you're playing, okay? And so just like any other part of changing your identity, though, there's an element that what happens is once your identity says, once you say, I'm this identity, okay, boom, dopamine is deployed. So not only are you getting rewarded, you're getting expectation now. So it's like, oh, now I know what to expect. The brain's like, I know that's who you are. You're the person who loves rage. So I'm going to give you more of it, right? And then not only that, though, it kicks on the hippocampus, which kicks on the basal ganglia. Why is that important? Hippocampus is where your memories sit, right? All of your identity, right? And I've shared this before. All of your identity, and this is the state, is bundled up in your repeated memories. That's why Neville's idea, and I'm not going to go into it today, but all of his ideas about revising yourself, revising your childhood, revising your memories is revising who you are. Okay, because all we're doing with the states akin to sleep is creating memories that are overlaying the old ones, right? And so that's what a state akin to sleep is. If you don't know what a state akin to sleep is, it's simply what you're doing either at bedtime or what you are doing when you wake up. I would encourage you to do it throughout the day as well, right? And that's where you're creating a scene from the first person, repeating one action over and over, where you are self-predominant. That's Neville's words. What that means is that you are doing an action from first person, right? That's all that means. So again, when you kick on the hippocampus, you're accessing a memory that says, oh, I'm that person, right? So then a drug user might access a memory that reminds them the last time that they took the drug. Here's the other thing. What other place did I say? Kicks on the basal ganglia. What is the basal ganglia known for? Action, physical, body, biological movement, toes, feet, knees, everything. This is crazy. This is where it gets crazy. You have literally, because you've accepted an identity or a state, which is a body of beliefs, your body is saying, I know those. Those are familiar to me, right? And so I already know how to act. So as somebody who identifies as a drug user, I know where to get the drugs. I know how to use them. I know how to, and fill in the blanks. I know how to lie to my loved ones about it. I know how, right? All of this kind of stuff. And so you're creating this massive mental ecosystem, a world where you are entering into the body of a drug user, right? Or a house owner, or somebody who, this is going to sound weird, loves to be rejected, right? Or whatever it is, loves to be the victim. Okay. Now, most of you today would be like, no, I don't believe that. I would never agree to being the victim. Most of you that are struggling you're addicted to being a victim, right? And that's why it's hard to change, because you have nothing else to change it with, right? And so when Neville says to change states, what he's saying is to change your identity is you got to go to the root belief. You've got to go to that belief, the core, the heartbeat, the blood that's keeping it alive, and say, okay, and usually that's in memory. Right? So you have to go and change the memory. Hence why he's giving us the states akin to sleep technique, because he's saying you're going in, you're overlaying old memories with new memories, right? So do you have to have high emotions during, okay, so every time, okay, so let me see. I'm sorry, it's going to glitch for a second because I'm checking my battery. No, you don't have to have high emotions. You have to have belief. Right? Because remember how we talked about yesterday, right? The feelings which are feelings, right? But remember, feelings are interpretations of your emotions, right? So you're interpreting an emotion. So what would you feel like, right? So then you're saying, okay, that would feel great, that would feel successful, that would feel this, right? Whatever synonyms that you want. And as you know, like Raheem, I usually encourage people to choose 3 to 5 emotions for each scene, right? And that's because, again, right, you don't want to get fatigued. So when you're going in, though, there's nothing wrong with getting high emotions, right? But there's also nothing wrong with not having any emotions either. The point isn't the emotion. The point is conviction. So another way to say this is that Neville's not saying that you have to have an emotion every time. He's saying that the emotion is a tool, this is very key, a tool to lead to conviction. If you don't need the emotion to lead you to the conviction, go straight to the conviction. I believe I am it. I believe I'm the president. I believe I have this Jeep. I believe I have this career. I believe I'm loved. I believe, right? And so remember, belief is just repetition. Emotions are repetition. Identity is repetition, right? Changing your memory is repetition. Are you hearing this? Like, if you want to know how to manifest, that's it. Repeat everything. Keep repeating, right? Yes, take breaks. Do not overexhaust yourself, but keep repeating until the point to where you are the dominant, right? Neville Goddard, Kevin, thank you, by the way. And I'm trying to find a charger here. Let me see here, people. We might have to change places over here so I can actually do this. Let me see. Sorry. So we're going to try this one, people. We're going to try this one. All right. So, yeah, Goddard, Goddr. Oh, thank you, Red Hood. So, let me see. Can we get it? Is this yes. Okay. Sorry. We just had to roll with it, people. All right. So, again, yeah. So, Raheem, does that help? Like, the emotion is part of your desire, by the way. This is why everything I've done the last 3 days is kind of like I'm building a foundation here for you, right? And so when we were talking about what is an emotion or what is a feeling, right? Remember, feeling has to lead to conviction. So in one sense, remove the word feeling and just hear conviction, right? This is why some people are like, damn, that person's like creating their whole life out of thin air. It's because they can jump the feeling to conviction, right? And again, keep in mind, because people hear that and they're like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's too hard, or whatever. BS. Get that out of your head and start believing that you can get from here to there. That may take you time, but here's the key. Repetition. Repeat, right? Recycle, reduce, reuse. That's what you've got to do, right? And so I really, really want to encourage you all to take this seriously and to recognize that when we're talking about a state, and I'm messing around with chargers right now, is the key thing here isn't just repetition, right? Is that it's the belief, but belief is repetition, right? So you are creating an ecosystem of repetition, but there's something else here. And this is what I really also want to get across about the state. Because the state is a series of beliefs, not one. And, Sadia and I have talked about this before. It's a series of beliefs. It's an ecosystem. It's a body. That's what Neville calls a state, right? And then he says, listen, a body of beliefs, if repeated, will turn into a perception filter, right? And that means that's now your solid way of seeing the world. You're going to start interpreting everything, feeling everything, reacting to right? And you're going to start being that person. Remember how I said at the beginning of this today? It's all about a who, never about a what. Yeah, you want a car, you want all this, great. It's never about those things. It's about who is the person that you're being who already has those things. Does that make sense? Like, it's never, let no other coach, let no other person, let no other anybody get in your head that there's a what involved, ever. There's always a who that has the what, but it's the who that's always started. It's the who that's always guiding. It's the who that has the power, right? That's all it is. So that's what they call the self-concept. I call it, like the hero's journey, right? And so this is part of the hero's journey, is that you're becoming the person who has the thing. One moment. Okay, so my phone's gonna go. Thought I found a charger, but I really want to jump on there and talk about that. Right, the state is about desire. Who is desiring? That's the state. Because if you're a person who believes you're poor, then that's the who that is desiring the money. But if you are the who that knows you're rich, that desires the affluence, do you hear the difference? Poor people want money, right? Rich people only want affluence, which means it's more than money. It includes money, but it's stability, right? There is a difference between those two who's. Okay, so when you go into your scenes, you don't want to go in as a poor person who wants money. You want to go into the person that is rich that already has the affluence. And that's your foundation. That's what you're doing in when you're going in and creating these scenes and you're building out a who. And you are building it out. It's like Build-A-Bear, like here in America where you go to build and you choose little parts and right, and then you build this bear with a machine. Except your machine is your mind, emotions, and thoughts. That's the machine. Right? And you're using that to build the person out that already is the person who has everything. Then you start making decisions in this world from that perspective. When you wake up tomorrow, boom, you're no longer the person who doesn't have today. You're the person who already has everything tomorrow, right? And you wake up with that new mentality. Now, it may take you a few days to get there. Consistently persist because you deserve it, right? And that's what this is all about, okay? So again, if you're looking for coaching, Science Back Coaching, get in touch. There's an email on my bio. There's a free Discord group. Get in touch, right? Yeah, thank you. Yes, so stay on Discord. There's a link on my bio here in YouTube. Click on that one. If the link is dead, just email me, and I will make sure I email you back with a live, because Discord sometimes changes it. So yeah, let me know. And thank you, Kevin, by the way, for jumping on. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing some time and in yourself. So yeah, Neville Goddard, check it out. Super cool guy. But thank you all for being patient. Please have a great Sunday and the great rest of your week. Remember, you're always manifesting. So manifest great things every second of every day. You can do it. So much love to you all. Please have a great rest of your night. And I will talk to you soon. Adios, everybody.